Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Aadi. In continuation of my series wherein I try and understand the various locations of the border disputes between India and China, this is my third video covering the eastern sector. The dispute in this region is mainly around the state of Sikkim and the state of Arunachal Pradesh, formerly known as the Northeast Frontier Agency. There are two separate stories for each of the states and we will discuss them one by one, looking at the geographical features which are important in this region, starting with the state of Sikkim. As we all might be aware, Sikkim was a monarchy ruled by the Chogyals from the 1642 to May the 16th, 1975. In this year, there was a resentment against the ruler which led to the Indian army moving into Gangtok at a time when the referendum on the monarchy was being held. The Sikkimese people voted overwhelmingly to abolish the monarchy and become a part of India. This at the time was obviously protested by the Chinese and was rejected as illegal. But in 2003, during the Sino-Indian Memorandum, the Chinese accepted India's control over Sikkim and even published a map showing Sikkim as a part of India. Might I add at this time that the Chinese foreign policy stated by Mao Zedong, which considers Tibet to be China's right hand with 5 fingers, namely Ladakh, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan and Arunachal Pradesh, and it also states that it is China's responsibility to liberate these regions. Now to the earth images. Before the year 1975, the kingdom of Sikkim, as shown here, was an Indian protectorate. The first clash that happened in this region was in 1967 in the areas of Nathula as well as Chola. La, just to add, is a pass. Now in these areas, Indian forces from the 17th Mountain Division commanded by Major General Sagat Singh gave the Chinese a lot more than a bloody nose by inflicting major casualties in a clash that lasted 3 days in Nathula and just a day in Chola. We would look at each one of these in detail to understand where they are and what they are. Nathula, located at an altitude of 14,140 feet, is about 54 kilometers from the capital of Sikkim, Gangtok, and is one of the 3 open trading borders between India and China. The others are Shipkila in Himachal Pradesh and the Lipu Lake Pass in Uttarakhand. It is also one of the 5 border meeting points between the Indian Army and the People's Liberation Army of China. The next pass that we would look at is the Chola Pass, located at an altitude of about 15,669 feet, situated about 8 kilometers north of Nathula. As I mentioned earlier, this pass was the scene of a clash between the Chinese and the Indian Army on 1st of October 1967. The third region that we will see here is the Sebula Pass, which is in northern Sikkim, and Chinese dispute this area, calling this their own. This pass is located at an altitude of 17,560 feet. Before moving on to the next topic of discussion, which is Doklam, of course, famous for its 2017 standoff between the two armies, I'd like to show you this Chumbi Valley Chinese base close to the passes of Nathula, which is in the middle of a valley, pretty much surrounded by Indian troops at very strategic locations. Now Doklam, which is located at the tri-junction border between India, China and Bhutan, disputed by China, which obviously does not surprise anyone. I would like to clearly mention here that India does not claim this region but comes to the assistance of Bhutan, as the latter is a protectorate of the country of India. The standoff here started on the 16th June 2017, and this was the very location where the standoff happened. And by the August 28th, after a lot of positioning on these high peaks, both the countries announced that they would pull back their forces owing to the fact that the occupation of strategic heights in this region was done by India, which made it very, very precarious for the Chinaman to make any moves in this region. Moving on to the next sector located in Arunachal Pradesh, I'd like to take some time to explain to you the reasoning behind this dispute. In 1914, a convention held in Shimla by Sir Henry McMahon had proposed a map that you can see on your screens with a line that extended for about 890 kilometers from Bhutan in the west, somewhere here, to the bend of the Brahmaputra Valley, somewhere around here, going about 260 kilometers to the east. This agreement was signed between the British Indian government and the representative from the government of Tibet. The Chinese, even at that time, did not recognize Tibet and its authority to sign any agreement in regards to the border with India. At the time of independence, India went ahead and claimed the McMahon Line as the international border between the two countries by about 1951. During the time of British, this area was known as the Northeast Frontier Agency, and post-independence it became a part of Assam. In 1962, during the war, the Chinese had occupied quite a large portion of this state and withdrew back to the current international border within a month at the end of the war. In 1967, for the first time, a deputy commissioner became the administrative head of this region. Further, in 1972, it became a union territory and thereafter a state after a few years in 1986. China, as one now might not be too surprised to hear, does not consider the state of Arunachal Pradesh to be a part of India and claims this entire region worth 90,000 square kilometers to be South Tibet. We will now look at the various sectors of confrontation both in history and in present times in this state and area to understand the geography of this region. The first area that I'd like to show you is the Tawang base. Strategically very important, and I'm sure you can see the armed forces set up right over there. Tawang is the region most contested by the Chinese and is a sore point for them. Situated at an altitude of 8,757 feet, has the second largest monastery in the world, after Lhasa, I might add. Now, the next area that I will take you is to a place called Sumdrong Chu. Located at an altitude around about 14,000 feet, this area became the scene of a standoff between the two armies in 1987. Now, India, in the end part of 1986, granted statehood to Arunachal Pradesh, as well as the Operation Checkerboard conducted by the Indian Army in February 1986 to prepare and test their response to a Chinese action like the one done in 1962 probably irked the Chinese. The army then was commanded by General K. Sundarji, who had also built an observation point on the Sumdrong River in 1984. Now, coming back to 86, the Chinese were found to be in possession of this post coming summer and built up backups of over 20,000 troops in this area. This deployment was overpowered once again by Indians occupying strategic heights in this region. General Sundarji was determined to conduct this operation and not stand down to Chinese pressure. The situation had become quite tense for a while, but then the lines of communication opened between the two countries and both started working towards disengagement and de-escalation. The next part in this region we would look at is a place called Bumla at the bottom part of your screen. This again is a pass located at an altitude of 15,200 feet. It is bang on the international border and not very far from the Chinese contingent that you can see on your screen right now, the Chinese Army base camp as it's marked. Having said that, without discussing in detail how our forces are positioned there, I would like to only state that the Indian Army and the Air Force are more than capable for the defense of this region. The Bumla Pass is also a historical path that the PLA ground forces took during the War of 1962, where one of the fiercest and bloodiest battles was fought in this region. A bit more east of this particular region on the international border, you will now see a pass called Tungla. This entire region is in context when I'm talking about the incident. Now here, 4 Assam rifle soldiers were tortured and killed by the Chinese forces in 1975. This fact was not published by the government of the day, fearing the demand for strong retaliation and an escalation in this situation. I wonder if this could be done in today's day and age. The next region that we will see is the Siang Valley, just at the place where the Brahmaputra enters India. Now if I may just zoom into the screen, you'll be able to see the river just flowing down. A point of contention here between India and China is that the Chinese are building a dam on this river in occupied Tibet, about northeast of this region. The next area that we will see is the administrative district of Wolong. What I've shown you here is the line which is the international border next to the Chalyu or the Lohit river. In this particular area, a fierce battle was fought here in 1962, in commemoration of which in 2002 a war memorial was established. When one studies this region, it is quite sad to learn about the tremendous losses taken by our soldiers of the Indian Armed Forces during 1962. But it is also very encouraging to read the stories of 67 in Nathula and 87 in Sungdronchu, as well as Doklam, where the Indian Army stood their ground against unnecessary Chinese aggression. The Indian Armed Forces, after the war in 1962, have made large efforts in containing as well as strengthening their presence in this region by having a huge number of troops supported by advanced landing grounds and helicopter pads spread all over this region. I will show you some of them right now. The first one being the Along Air Base, pretty much in the center of the state. The second is the Manchuka. The third is the Pasighat, right on the banks of the Brahmaputra, and I'm sure some of you can notice these are proper runways. The fourth is Tooting, which is very close to the international border. And another one that I'd like to show you is known as Vijayanagar Changlang. These air bases are further supported by permanent air stations with large wings in Jorhat, Dibrugarh, Tezpur, so on and so forth. The Indian Army has 4 corps worth of troops in this region. And why do I talk about the strength of the forces? Something I haven't done before in my videos is because I feel the knowledge amongst all of us, especially about the eastern sector, is very little. And by mentioning the above, I would like to assure the countrymen that all armed forces present there are as strong as, if not stronger, in this region. As far as infrastructure development is concerned, the existing National Highway 13 is going to be further strengthened as well as added to via a road network flowing close to the LAC as shown in this photograph. The main road from Tezpur via Bomdila through the Sela Pass is being made easier by cutting through a mountain at an altitude of around 10,000 feet. The road starts at Tezpur, as I mentioned, towards the Sela Pass, which mind you is a road at about 14,000 feet, and if somebody needs to deploy in a hurry, it takes a long time. The road also has various hairpin bends, taking almost 10 hours for the troops to reach the sector of Tawang. This particular road, which is going to be carved through the mountain, will add to the mobility of the Indian Armed Forces. It has been an extreme learning curve for myself just researching most of these integral parts of my country, and I hope you feel the same way after watching this video. In the end, might I just request you to subscribe to my channel, share my videos with your friends, and kindly encourage me with the click of your mouse to do more and more of videos like this. I say this in every video. Please do send a thought for our soldiers standing guard, ever ready for any consequence against the uncalled for and insensible actions taken by the Chinese once a day, every day. Jai Hind.